I want my kids now. I abandoned them with you, but I need them for my ambition now.
Please, brother. I am already used to them. Please leave them.
The day my brother walked back into my life, he didn't come with an apology. He came with a lawyer. He stood at my door in a crisp agbada, gold watch catching the morning sun, two men in suits flanking him like he was someone important, and maybe to the world he was now. But to me, to those three children sleeping inside that small house I had bled to pay rent for, he was nothing but a ghost who had suddenly decided to become real again. Amara, he said, like my name tasted familiar in his mouth. I've come for my children. My hands went cold. The wrapper I was holding dropped to the floor. Behind me, I could hear Clara humming in the kitchen, Daniel's radio playing low, little Sophia's feet pattering across the hallway. 11 years. 11 years of school fees, hospital bills, sleepless nights, skipped meals, and prayers so desperate they scraped the ceiling. 11 years of being their mother, their father, their everything. And this man, this stranger in expensive shoes, was standing at my door calling them his. Some wounds don't bleed immediately, they wait. I was 23 years old when my brother Tunde placed 3 children at my doorstep and disappeared. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had just finished hemming a wedding dress for Mama Chuku's daughter and my fingers were raw from the needle. I was counting coins on my sewing table, calculating whether I had enough to buy tomatoes and stockfish when I heard the knock. I opened the door and there he was, Tunde, my only brother, the one our mother used to call her Pride. He was wearing a faded shirt, eyes red like he hadn't slept, and behind him stood 3 small children holding each other like they were afraid of the wind. Daniel was 7, Clara was 5. Sophia had just turned 3 and didn't fully understand yet that her mother, Tunde's wife, Ngozi, had died in a hospital nobody paid for, died with debts and unfinished prayers. I need you to watch them, Tunde said. He didn't say please. He didn't even look me fully in the eyes. For how long, I asked. He picked up the small bag he had dropped by the door. Just for a short time. I need to sort myself out, find work, get back on my feet. Sophia was soaking her thumb, staring at me with those wide, confused eyes. Clara had her hand wrapped around Daniel's arm like he was a tree in his storm. Daniel, poor Daniel, was trying so hard to look strong, his little jaw set tight, blinking fast like he was fighting tears. Something cracked open in my chest. Come inside, I told them. I looked up to tell Tunde to come in too, to talk, to make a plan, but he was already walking away. No goodbye to the children, no backward glance, just his retreating back and the sound of his slippers slapping against the compound ground until he turned the corner and vanished. I stood in that doorway for a long moment, the evening air settling around me, the children silent behind me. I didn't know then that a short time would stretch into 1 year, then 5, then 10. I didn't know that those 3 small people would become the reason I woke up every morning, the reason I sewed until my eyes burned, the reason I learned to fight in ways I never thought a quiet seamstress could fight. I didn't know that loving them would cost me everything and that one day someone would try to take them away because of it. I turned back to the children. Are you hungry? I asked. Clara nodded so fast it broke my heart. Okay, I said softly, pulling the door wider. Come, let Auntie Amara feed you. But even as I said it, Auntie Amara, something inside me already knew. These children would not call me auntie for long. There is a kind of love that doesn't announce itself. It just shows up every day, quietly, and does the work. My 1-room apartment was not built for 4 people. It had 1 mattress, 1 small gas cooker, a sewing machine by the window, and a ceiling fan that wobbled so badly we nicknamed it Trouble. But we made it work, the way poor people always make things work, with creativity, with prayer, and with a stubborn refusal to break. The first few months were the hardest. Sophia cried every night for her mother. She would wake up screaming, "Mama, Mama," and I would pull her into my chest and rock her in the dark, singing the same Yoruba lullaby our own mother used to sing to us, until her small body stopped shaking. My tears would fall into her hair, but I made sure my voice never trembled. She needed to feel that someone was solid, that someone would not leave. Daniel became quiet in that way that worried me, the quietness of a child who has decided that feeling things is too dangerous. He was the oldest. He thought it was his job to be strong. I watched him carry that weight, and I made it my mission to take it from him, piece by piece. I started by talking to him like a person, not just a child. "Daniel," I told him one evening while he helped me fold fabric, "you don't have to be strong in this house. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to be angry. This is a safe place." He looked at me for a long time, then slowly, his chin wobbled, and for the first time since he arrived, he wept. He wept like something had been trapped inside him and finally found a door. I held him until he was empty. After that, something shifted between us, not just with Daniel, with all three of them. They began to trust me, not because I had money, not because I could give them everything, but because I was there, consistently, stubbornly, lovingly there. I sewed day and night to pay their school fees. I took on extra work, alterations, embroidery, uniforms for a school 3 streets away. There were months I ate garri twice a day so they could have rice. There were nights I prayed over hospital bills I didn't know how to pay when Clara came down with malaria and the drugs cost more than I had. I remember one night, Clara's 3rd year with me, when I sat on the floor of the bathroom after everyone was asleep and allowed myself to fall apart. Just for 10 minutes, I counted it, 10 minutes of crying into my wrapper, asking God why this had been placed on me, asking him where my own life had gone, if Tunde was even alive somewhere, if he ever thought about his children. Then I washed my face, looked in that cracked mirror above the sink, and went back to work. Because they needed me. And somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking of them as my brother's children. They became mine. If this story is already touching something deep inside you, if you see yourself or someone you love in Amara's struggle, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what happens next will shake you. The strength it took to build this family is nothing compared to the fight it will take to keep it. The most dangerous people are not strangers. They are the ones who already know where you keep your heart. He came back on a Saturday morning in March. I know it was Saturday because I had just returned from the market with a small chicken, a treat because Daniel had passed his WAEC with flying colors and I wanted to celebrate. The children were home. Sophia, now 14, was plaiting Clara's hair on the veranda. Daniel, 18, and already talking about university, was inside reading. I was still holding the market bag when I saw the black car parked outside my gate. I didn't recognize it. I almost walked past, but then the door opened and Tunde stepped out. I stopped walking. My brain needed a moment because the man standing in front of me looked nothing like the broken red-eyed brother who had left 3 children on my doorstep 11 years ago. This Tunde was wearing a tailored agbada. His shoes were the kind that cost more than my monthly rent. He had a gold watch and a full beard trimmed with precision. And behind him stepped out 2 men in suits carrying briefcases. He smiled at me. That smile, like no time had passed, like he had simply stepped out to buy bread and come back. "Amara," he said, "you're looking well." My market bag slipped from my hand. "Tunde," my voice came out flat. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see my children." He said it so casually. My children. Like they were a car he had parked somewhere and come back to collect. Sophia had heard his voice. She appeared at the gate, looking at this well-dressed stranger with careful eyes. She didn't recognize him. She was 3 when he left. He was nothing but a name to her, a name I had spoken carefully over the years, never poisoning it, never honoring it with too much space. "Who is that?" she whispered to me. Before I could answer, Tunde stepped forward. "Sophia," he spread his arms. "It's your father." She looked at him. Then she looked at me. The look on her face, confusion, unease, a child searching for a cue from the one person she trusted. That look will live inside me forever. "Go inside," I told her quietly. "Call your brothers." Then I turned to Tunde and I said, low and steady, so the neighbors wouldn't hear, "You need to leave this compound right now, Tunde, before I say something in front of these men that you will regret." The smile stayed on his face, but something shifted behind his eyes. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. One of the suitmen stepped forward and handed it to me. "My lawyer will be in touch," Tunde said. "I am filing for custody. They are my biological children and I have the right to raise them." The envelope felt like a brick in my hands. I watched him get back into that shining car. I watched it pull away. I watched until it disappeared around the corner. Then I sat down on the ground right there in the compound, in my market clothes, with a dead chicken beside me and legal papers in my hand, and I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep from screaming. Daniel found me there. He must have heard something from inside because he came running out, and when he saw my face, he knelt beside me on the ground without asking a single question. Just knelt there, this tall, broad-shouldered boy I had raised from 7 years old, and put his hand over mine. "Mama Amara," he said. That was what they called me. Not auntie, not sister, Mama Amara. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it." I looked at him. My throat was too tight to speak, so I just nodded. The case lasted 3 months. 3 months of lawyers and paperwork and people in wigs and gowns speaking about my children like they were a legal problem to be solved. 3 months of sitting in hard wooden chairs, watching Tunde perform the role of a concerned, loving father for a judge who didn't know him from Adam. His lawyer was good, I will give him that. He talked about biological rights. He talked about Tunde's financial stability, his business in Lagos, his house in a good neighborhood, the school he wanted to enroll the children in. He made Tunde sound like a man who had simply been through hard times, a man who now had the means to give his children the best. He never mentioned the 11 years. He never mentioned the hospital nights and the Gary dinners and the school fees paid in installments. He never mentioned the nightmares I soothed, or the teeth I made sure were brushed, or the way I sat with all 3 of them after their grandmother died and held them while they grieved. My lawyer was not as expensive, but she was sharp. And she was angry on my behalf in a way that I found steadying. She called witnesses, neighbors who had watched me raise those children, their former teachers who had met me at every school event, never Tunde, always me. The doctor who had treated Clara through 2 bouts of malaria and 1 broken arm, who had my number in his records as next of kin for all 3 children. But the most powerful moment in that courtroom cost nothing. The judge asked to speak with the children. They were brought in one at a time. Clara first, 16 years old, composed, sitting in that chair like she had already decided what she was going to say and nothing would move her. The judge asked her gently, "Do you know the man sitting over there?" She looked at Tunde, long, steady. "I know who he is, but I don't know him." "What do you mean?" "I mean," her voice was careful, each word placed like a stone in water. "I know his name. I know he is my biological father, but I have never had a conversation with him. He has never called me on my birthday. He was not there when I was sick. He was not there when I needed someone. Mama Amara was there." Tunde's lawyer shifted in his seat. Daniel was next. He walked tall, and when he sat down, he looked directly at the judge with the steady eyes of a young man who has learned to carry hard things. "Why do you think your father is seeking custody now?" the judge asked. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "His company recently won a government contract. I looked it up. There is a family welfare clause in the contract requirements. A man with dependents qualifies for a higher tier." He paused. "We are not children to him. We are a requirement." The courtroom went very still. I watched Tunde's face from across the room. The mask slipped just for a second. Something ugly moved across his features before he composed himself. But the judge had seen it too. Sophia came in last. Tiny, fierce Sophia, who did not remember her father at all. She sat in the chair and folded her hands in her lap and looked at the judge with completely dry eyes. "Do you want to live with your father?" "No," she said simply. "Why not?" Sophia thought about it, like she was choosing the truest words. "Because my mother is not in that man's house. My mother is out there," she pointed toward the door, toward me. "And wherever she is, that is my home." I pressed both hands over my mouth. I had promised myself I would not cry in that courtroom. I had promised myself I would be strong and composed and give Tunde nothing. I broke that promise completely. The ruling came on a Thursday. I sat in that courtroom in the best dress I owned, a deep green Ankara I had sewn myself because I was a seamstress, and if nothing else, I would be well dressed when my fate was decided. My lawyer sat beside me. The children were not present for the ruling. I had sent them to school that morning and told them to pray. Tunde sat across the room in his fine agbada, his lawyers beside him, looking confident. He had money. He had biological rights. He had a system that often valued those things over everything else. But the judge had listened. The judge had looked at the evidence and heard from the children, and the judge, God bless that small grey-haired woman, had done her job. She spoke for 20 minutes. I will not remember all the words, but I will remember the ones that mattered. Biological parenthood confers legal rights, but those rights carry corresponding responsibilities. This court finds that the respondent, Mr. Tunde Adeyemi, abandoned his children for a period of 11 years with no financial contribution, no communication, and no demonstrated interest in their welfare. The applicant, Ms. Amara Adeyemi, stepped into the void he created and raised these children at significant personal cost and sacrifice. She paused. The children have spoken clearly. They are of sufficient age for their preferences to carry weight. This court awards full legal custody of Daniel, Clara, and Sophia Adeyemi to Ms. Amara Adeyemi. I heard a sound and realized it was coming from me, a low, broken sound, like something that had been holding itself tight for years, finally releasing. Furthermore, this court orders the respondent to pay arrears of child support for the 11-year period of abandonment, calculated at the standard rate, to be transferred to the applicant within 90 days. Failure to comply will result in further legal action. Tunde stood up. "This is an injustice." "Sit down, Mr. Adeyemi," the judge said, with the calm of a woman who had seen many men like him, "or I will hold you in contempt." He sat. I turned to my lawyer and she was smiling, tears running down her face, and she grabbed my hands and squeezed them hard. I walked out of that courtroom into the afternoon sun, and the first thing I did was call Daniel. He picked up on the first ring. "Mama Amara?" His voice was tight with waiting. "Come home," I said. "Bring your sisters. Come home." There was a pause. Then, "Did we win?" I tilted my face up to the sky. The sun was warm on my skin. Somewhere nearby, a woman was frying akara, and the smell of it drifted over me, and for a strange, sweet moment, everything felt ordinary and miraculous at once. Yes, I told him, we won. I heard him shout. I heard Clara scream in the background. I heard Sophia laughing, that wild, bright laugh she had, the one that had always filled every room she entered since she was 3 years old and new to my life and had no idea what we would become to each other. When they got home that evening, Daniel walked through the door first and did not say a word. He just came to me and hugged me the way grown children hug when they want to say something that words are not big enough for. Clara came next, and then Sophia, and the 4 of us stood there in that small house, that one room that had expanded into a 2-bedroom apartment because I had worked and saved and built, and we held each other. I thought about the Tuesday night I opened a door and found 3 frightened children. I thought about Gary eating in silence and prayers whispered in a cracked mirror bathroom. I thought about Tunde's retreating back all those years ago, his slippers slapping against the compound floor. He had walked away from the most precious thing he would ever possess, and in doing so, he had given them to me. Not by blood, not by paperwork, not by any law written in any book, but by love, by presence, by choosing every single day to stay. Sophia pulled back and looked at me, her eyes bright. "Mama," she said, "just that, just Mama." And that one word, that single ordinary, extraordinary word was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every coin counted on a sewing table, every tear cried into a wrapper in a bathroom at midnight. It was worth everything. It was everything. My name is Reina. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned 1 or 2 lessons from this story. Subscribe to our channel so when we post interesting stories like this, you'd be the first to know.